Sam Bankman, I don't know if you remember this story. I covered it a while back, and it's kind of been crickets since then, but he is back in the news. If you remember, Sam Bankman was the gentleman who owned FTX. Now, this was just another version of crypto. A lot of people apparently had invested in FTX, and this company lost, billions of dollars overnight. So a lot of people were angry with Sam. People were like, Sam, I want my money back. Things like that. If you don't remember, let's go back and have a quick recap of how we got here. And then I'm going to tell you the new update in reference to his criminal charges. Let's go ahead and dive in here.
He was once hailed as the king of crypto. But today, Sam Bankman-Fried, founder and former CEO of crypto exchange FTX, is facing criminal indictments and a wave of civil complaints.
Bankman-Fried and his co-conspirators stole billions of dollars from FTX customers. He used that money for his personal benefit.
Bankman-Fried, arrested last night in the Bahamas, faces 8 criminal charges in the U.S. Authorities alleging he defrauded investors by funneling customers' money into his own hedge fund behind their backs. As a result, they say $8 billion have gone missing.
This committee will not stop until we uncover the full truth behind the collapse of FTX.
In Washington today, a congressional hearing on FTX's collapse following what amounted to a run on the bank last month. Bankman-Fried, who was expected to testify, was instead making his first court appearance in the Bahamas.
There was no corporate controls, no corporate oversight.
FTX's new CEO, John Ray, led energy giant Enron through bankruptcy after its collapse. Today, appearing before Congress, he ripped into Bankman-Fried's management.
This is just taking money from customers and using it for your own purpose. Not sophisticated at all. This is.
And another thing I want to mention here too, just in case you may have forgotten, remember when we talk about the customers, it wasn't just people who were wealthy and just like to dabble in crypto. It was also just everyday people that took a chance investing into this company. So just keep that in mind too. There were a couple of videos where there were some people said like they lost everything. So just keep that in mind when you hear what has happened now with Sam.
Just plain old embezzlement.
At its peak, FTX had 2.7 million users in the U.S., and superstar celebrities were promoting the company.
You know what? I'm in.
Bankman-Fried was also donating tens of millions of dollars to political campaigns, including President Biden's 2020 White House bid. But today's allegations say that money actually belonged to customers. The White House.
Hold on to that piece. That piece is very important. Donating money to the Democratic Party. Now, I covered that when this story first broke, but that's very important when you understand what has recently been announced in reference to the charges that are against him. So if that money belonged to customers, he basically stole money from those customers to donate to politicians. Why are all these crypto dudes all of a sudden getting invested into politicians? This is becoming more common now, right? I was talking just on RBN an hour ago about David Sachs, who's also one of those crypto dudes, but he's a billionaire investing in politicians like Ron DeSantis and politicians like RFK Jr. What is happening here? Why are they so invested in politics now? Let's continue.
Saying due to the Hatch Act, it could not answer questions of whether or not the president would return the donations.
And all of this dirty money was used in service of Bankman-Fried's desire to buy bipartisan influence and impact the direction of public policy in Washington.
Buying politicians and buying policy. Now, this is nothing new. This has been going on for a long time. We have corporations that do this as well. You have to go back to this case, the ruling from the Supreme Court. In 2010, the Supreme Court made a ruling that it is actually legal for corporations to be considered people, and they are entitled to buy politicians. So when we talk about getting money out of politics, you have to go all the way back to that ruling from the Supreme Court and all the way back to when super PACs first started or when PACs first started. We didn't always have PACs and super PACs. But again, It's not just him doing this. Corporations have been doing this for years, but they are protected by the Supreme Court. What is not protected by the Supreme Court is for him to take customer money from FTX and use that money to donate to politicians. That is not protected by the Supreme Court.
In a statement today, his lawyer said Mr. Bankman-Fried is reviewing the charges with his legal team and considering all of his legal options.
We messed up big.
Before his arrest, Bankman-Fried took part in a whirlwind media tour defending himself.
There are things I would give anything to be able to do over again. I didn't ever try to commit fraud on anyone.
Kate Rooney joins me now. Kate, Bankman-Fried, as you noted, was arrested in the Bahamas. What happens next?
So, Lester, the United States has asked for extradition to New York, but Bankman-Fried's legal team plans to fight the request. His application for bail has been denied, and he'll remain in a Bahamian jail. His next court appearance for arguments over extradition is scheduled for February 8th.
Okay, so that was just to remind you where we came from. And now we're going to take a look at where we are now. There was a breaking news in reference to his particular case. And if you have not heard this, hold on to your seat, because you are not going to be happy with this information, because the DOJ has decided to drop campaign finance charges against Sam Bankman-Fried. I kid you not. Now, remember, what did they just say in that clip? He took money from customers and donated to politicians. This charge is being dropped. Let's go on a little bit here. There he is. Federal prosecutors pursuing the criminal case against cryptocurrency mogul Sam Bankman-Fried said on Wednesday that they were dropping a charge that he violated campaign finance rules. Mr. Bankman-Fried was charged with fraud and campaign finance violations in December after the sudden collapse of his company, the cryptocurrency exchange FTX. He was quickly extradited to the U.S. from the Bahamas, where FTX is based. But in a court filing on Wednesday, the prosecutor said the Bahamas had informed them that the nation's government had not intended to extradite Mr. Bankman-Fried on the campaign finance charge. They made a mistake, apparently. Okay. In keeping with its treaty obligations to the Bahamas, the government does not intend to proceed to trial on the campaign contributions count. The removal of the charge is a victory for Mr. Bankman-Fried's legal team, which had argued that the U.S. mishandled the extradition process, and it follows the prosecution's decision in June to proceed to a trial in October without pursuing 5 other charges that were added to Mr. Bankman-Fried's indictment in the weeks after his extradition. What to know about the collapse of FTX? The now bankrupt company was one of the world's largest crypto exchanges. It enabled customers to trade digital currencies for other digital currencies or traditional money. It also had a native crypto known as FTT. The company, based in the Bahamas, built its business on risky trading options that were not legal in the United States. Thus, you see why it was based in the Bahamas. Now, I want to say something before we continue to go on here with this article, because obviously there's something that really needs to be pointed out here. Do you see how rich people can get away with crime? See how he was able to just have that charge dropped when there was already proof that he took people's money and donated to politicians? Rich people can get away with crime. They can. Look how they just walk away. Look at this. We'll get to the Hunter Biden story in just a second, but look at all these years. The Hunter Biden case, the Hunter Biden laptop. Hunter Biden's just been walking around the past couple of years, living his best life. And they're just now bringing him in on certain charges, and not even the charges that I would add that he really needs to be brought in on. This is what happens when you have money, because the justice system works for people who have money. People who don't have money are in jail. People who don't have money to pay the bail bond to get out of jail. Some of the people sitting in jail are not there necessarily because they're guilty. Some of them are sitting there because they don't have the money to pay for bail. Or they took a plea bargain just to get it over with. We have to remember this idea that you have a right to a trial by jury. They don't say how fast this is supposed to work. Not everybody gets a trial. In fact, a lot of these cases don't get a trial. So what people will often do is they'll accept the plea deal so they can just get this over with. But not rich people. Rich people can get away with it. Now let's go on. The authorities have said Mr. Bankman-Fried and others at FTX used customer deposits to make $90 million in campaign contributions to some 300 political candidates or political action committees. That's PACs. Now, how is this an error? 300? I could understand if it was one candidate. Oh, we made a mistake. He actually don't take that money and donate to that one candidate. That was actually something else. But 300? And they dropped these charges? Months ago, prosecutors and bankruptcy lawyers for FTX began asking recipients of those donations to return them. A spokeswoman for Mr. Bankman-Fried declined to comment. A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, which is prosecuting the case, did not respond to a request for comment. Of course they didn't. In total, Mr. Bankman-Fried is now set to face 7 charges at his trial in October, including accusations that he defrauded customers and lenders of FTX. Prosecutors have argued that he orchestrated a sweeping fraud, siphoning billions of dollars that customers had deposited with FTX to finance campaign contributions, charitable donations, and real estate purchases. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say something. I'm going to make a prediction. Don't be surprised if he actually gets off on all of these charges. Don't be surprised. He has the money and the resources to have the best attorney, the best legal team. And again, he's rich. He already got one charge dropped. Don't be surprised if he gets off on all these charges or maybe some of them, and then he may have to make some type of plea deal for the other ones. Maybe it's you may have to do community service. But don't be surprised if this guy does not actually serve hardcore prison time for what he has done. By the way, this is, from what I remember, this is a felony. And just like that, he'll get his life back. Whereas other people who may have a felony charge, but they have no money and no resources, get out of jail and can't restart their life. He'll be fine. One more piece here. Prosecutors are planning a second trial on the 5 charges that were withdrawn in June, including an accusation that Mr. Bankman-Fried bribed a foreign government. They say they had to postpone a trial on those counts while litigation over the extradition unfolded in the Bahamas. Now, I want to show you something else. Wall Street Apes, this account on Twitter, they had receipts. You see, because they remembered that he actually did do this. Sam Bankman-Fried didn't just give $300K to House committee members investigating him. If you are wondering why Kevin McCarthy isn't doing anything like impeaching Merrick Garland, it's because he's in on it. McCarthy received millions. McConnell received millions. So in other words, he was donating not just to Democrats, apparently. Always goes back to the money, you guys. The whole uniparty is in on the take. The entire system is corrupt to its core. All of our selected officials are laundering out hard-earned tax dollars back to themselves and did so with FTX. Where is the motion to vacate? Both Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland would be long gone if we didn't have a controlled opposition Republican majority Congress robbing us blind. But no, Trump and Mar-a-Lago are trending. So he brings up a good point here. And basically what he's telling you is that Trump and Mar-a-Lago are a distraction when you have politicians right there in the House still basically they took these campaign donations from Sam and nothing seems to be getting done. Now I want to zoom in because I want to show you the receipt. So he came with receipts. Congressional, I don't know if you can see. Okay. Congressional Leadership Fund. If I click on it, it makes it smaller. But I just want to show you Schedule A itemized receipts. Congressional Leadership Fund. Amount of each recipient this period. So you can see the dollar amount there. And then it says name of employer, FTX Digital Markets. Name of committee, Senate Leadership Fund. Name of individual, Valero Services, Inc. And then there's the contribution right there. I mean, this is all here, guys. Look, there's other names. Look, another name that's mentioned, Ryan Salami, Cox Operating LLC, Altria Client Services LLC. If you look over here, we have Valero Services, John Childs, Ryan Salami again, and you see the donations are here. FTX Digital Markets, and there's the dollar amount. So if they can pull up the receipts, that's Wall Street Apes, if they can pull up those receipts, that means Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, all the rest of them can pull up those receipts as well. Now, I want to show you another thing, because this is really interesting too. Now, that account actually retweeted Tara Bull. The Department of Justice dropped the campaign finance charge against Sam Bankman-Fried. Our two-tier justice system at work. Remember when Sam Bankman-Fried gave $300K to House committee members investigating him, including Maxine Waters. So here we have a conflict of interest. Why was Maxine Waters allowed to be a part of the investigating committee when she's one of the politicians that he contributed to? Was this even a real investigation? Of course, Maxine is going to make sure she protects herself. Here's the photos. This is very telling. Like I told you, look, he's cozy with them. Cozy. They protect this guy. This is a mess. And even if you look at some of the comments, if I go back, we go back to because he retweeted Tara. So if you go back, I don't know, this guy is, I'm America's last best hope for freedom. Apparently he's running for president too. All are laughing. This is crazy. I wrote today about the efforts of big firms like BlackRock and US regulators to domesticate crypto, reduce its ability to compete with the US dollar. I'm super curious if we ever get the chance to see behind the curtain. In some ways, the FTX collapse created a pretext for the more intense regulatory scrutiny I discussed in today's article. So that's coming from Sasha Breger. DJT says, well, that's disturbing. The U.S. is now more corrupt than any single dictator they ever bought. And now listen to this. When this story broke, I told you that, watch, they're going to try to use this as an excuse to regulate crypto now. And you see them moving more in that direction. They're all corrupt. All of them. By the way, that's bipartisan. So you have Maxine Waters, you have Mitch McConnell, and you have Kevin McCarthy. That's bipartisan. They don't really care about partisan lines when it comes to money. But we'll keep an eye on this story, and I'll let you know if they drop any more charges. I will let you know.